Formula One just lost 2 races because of a real war, wiped an entire month off the calendar. And now, new leaked details suggest they're about to bring one of those races back, at the most critical moment of the season. Saudi Arabia. A Grand Prix cancelled for safety reasons, now being targeted for a shock return in December. That alone is massive. But here's what makes this unbelievable. This isn't just a replacement. This could extend the season to its latest finish ever, add a brand new race when the championship is already on the edge, and completely change who wins the title. Because if these leaks are real, this isn't just a comeback. It's a last-second move that could decide everything. Because what those leaks reveal is not just a possible return. It's a plan. A very specific one. Now think about the timeline. The races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia were cancelled almost instantly after the escalation in the region. Airspace shut down. Logistics impossible. Security completely uncertain. In less than 2 weeks, everything was gone. And Formula One had no choice but to cut both races. But here's where things start to get interesting. Because while the public saw cancellation, inside the paddock, the language was different. They never said lost. They said postponed. Quietly. Carefully. Without making it official. And that's the first clue. Because in Formula One, words matter. A cancelled race is gone. A postponed race is waiting. Now add this. Multiple insiders are pointing to one specific target. Early December. Right between Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Which means the season doesn't just recover. It expands. To the longest calendar finish in modern Formula One history. And that's not a small adjustment. That's a complete restructuring of the final phase of the championship. Because now, instead of heading into a final race, drivers would face one more battle. One more circuit. One more chance to gain or lose everything. But here's what makes this even more intense. This isn't confirmed. Not yet. Because for this to happen, 3 critical conditions must be met. And none of them are guaranteed. Airspace must be fully reopened. Security must be guaranteed at the highest level. And Abu Dhabi must agree to move its date. 3 decisions. 3 risks. 3 potential points of failure. Which means one thing. This plan is real. But it's fragile. And if even one piece fails, the entire comeback disappears instantly. So now, everything depends on something much bigger than racing. Because this isn't just Formula One deciding. It's geopolitics, security, timing, all aligning at the exact same moment. And if they do, this season won't end the way anyone expected. And this is where the situation turns from possibility into strategy. Because if you look closely at the leaked details, you start to understand something much deeper. This isn't just about bringing a race back. It's about when they chose to bring it back. December. The final stretch. The moment where everything is already at maximum tension. And that choice is not random. Because adding a race in the middle of the season changes rhythm. But adding a race at the end changes destiny. Now imagine the championship fight. 2 drivers. Separated by a handful of points. They've calculated everything. Fuel usage. Engine wear. Risk management. Every decision built around a known number of races. And suddenly, that number changes. One more race. One more opportunity. One more risk. And that destroys the balance. Because now, the driver leading the championship is no longer in control. They can't just manage the gap. They can't just play safe. They are forced to fight again. Push again. Risk again. And on the other side, the driver chasing gets something priceless. Hope. A second chance that didn't exist before. And that's why this move is so powerful. Because it doesn't just affect points. It affects psychology. Confidence. Momentum. Everything shifts the moment that extra race becomes real. But here's the part that makes this even more controversial. Not every team wants this to happen. Because some cars are built for tracks like Jeddah. Fast. Low drag. Aggressive on the straights. Others struggle there. And if this race is suddenly added at the end, it doesn't just test skill. It tilts the playing field. Potentially deciding a championship on a circuit that wasn't even supposed to be there. And that's where the tension behind the scenes becomes real. Because now, teams are not just racing. They're watching, waiting, trying to understand if this decision benefits someone more than others. Because in Formula One, a move like this is never neutral. It always creates winners before the lights even go out. And that leads to the biggest question of all. If this race returns, who does it really help? And who does it hurt when everything is on the line? And this is where the story takes a turn that most people don't see coming. Because while everyone is focused on the race itself, The real impact is happening behind it. Now think about the calendar. Every race is placed with intention. Logistics, weather, broadcast schedules, global audience peaks. Nothing is random. But this is different. Because this race, if it returns, is being inserted into a space that was never meant to exist. Right between Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Two of the most demanding races of the entire season. Back to back. High pressure. End-of-year fatigue. And now, potentially, a third race in between. That's not just intense. That's brutal. Because by that point in the season, teams are already at their limit. Engines are worn. Components are at the edge of their life cycle. Drivers are exhausted. Mentally, physically, emotionally. And yet, one more race appears. One more weekend, where everything can break. And that's where the hidden advantage begins to show. Because not every team handles that pressure the same way. Some are built for endurance, for consistency, for surviving long seasons. Others rely on peak performance, short bursts, perfect conditions. And when you extend the season like this, you don't just test speed, you test resilience. And that can completely flip the championship. Because a car that was dominant earlier might not survive that extra stress. A driver who was leading might crack under that final wave of pressure. And someone else, quietly waiting, could take everything. But here's the part that makes this even more fascinating. This decision, if confirmed, doesn't just affect the drivers. It affects the machines. Because adding one more race means pushing components beyond what they were designed for. Gearboxes, power units, cooling systems. Everything is calculated for a fixed number of races. And now, that limit is broken. Which means reliability becomes just as important as speed. Maybe even more. And that's where championships are really decided. Not always by who is fastest, but by who survives to the end. And suddenly, this extra race is no longer just an opportunity. It's a filter. A final test that exposes every weakness, every limitation, every hidden flaw. And that's why this decision is so dangerous. Because it doesn't just add chaos. It amplifies it. At the worst possible moment. So now, as the possibility of Saudi Arabia returning becomes more real, there's one final realization building in the background. This race won't just be another round. It will be the race that reveals who is truly ready for everything this season could throw at them. And this is where everything finally connects. Because at this point, it's no longer about whether the race returns. It's about what that return actually represents. Because if Saudi Arabia is confirmed, then Formula One has just proven something no one can ignore. That even a global conflict, even closed airspace, even a completely cancelled race, is not enough to stop the machine. It just delays it. And that's the real story behind this decision. Because bringing this race back isn't just about money. It isn't just about the calendar. It's about control. Control over the narrative. Control over the season. Control over how the sport responds when everything goes wrong. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. Because Formula One is showing that it doesn't just react to chaos. It absorbs it, reworks it, and turns it into something that fits its structure. Even if that structure has to change. Now look at what that means moving forward. Every team knows it. Every driver feels it. Nothing is guaranteed anymore. Not the number of races. Not the timing. Not even the final moment of the season. And that changes everything. Because now, you're not just competing against your rivals. You're competing against uncertainty itself. Against decisions that can appear at any moment and shift the entire landscape. And that's what this Saudi Arabia return represents. Not just a race, but a signal that the sport is evolving into something more unpredictable than ever. Where the biggest move might not happen on track, but in a decision made far away from it. So when the season reaches its final stretch, when the pressure is at its highest, when everything seems decided, remember this. It might not be. Because if this race returns, then the ending you think is coming is not the one you're going to get. And that's the final twist. The one that has been building from the very beginning. In Formula One, the finish line is never as fixed as it seems. And this is where the story reaches its final and most revealing layer. Because after everything, the leaks, the negotiations, the uncertainty, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This was never a reaction. It was a test. A real-time test of how far Formula One can go when the system is pushed to its limits. Because think about what just happened. A war breaks out. 2 races disappear. The calendar collapses in one region. And instead of accepting the loss, Formula One immediately starts building a way back in. Quietly. strategically, step by step, not asking if it should return, but figuring out how to make it happen. And that changes everything. Because now, you understand something deeper about the sport. There is always a second plan. Always a backup scenario. Always a move, waiting behind the obvious one. And that's what makes this moment so important. Because this isn't just about Saudi Arabia. It's about the future of Formula One calendars. Flexible, adaptive, unpredictable. Where races are no longer fixed points, but moving pieces. And that creates a completely different kind of championship. One where drivers don't just fight each other. They fight uncertainty. Because now, at any moment, the structure can change. The number of races can shift. The final outcome can be extended. And that's something no one can fully control. Not even the best teams. Not even the best drivers. So when you look at this season, when you see the standings, when you think you understand where it's going, remember this. Everything you're watching is built on a structure that can still move. That can still change. That can still surprise you at the very end. And that's the final reality behind this entire story. Formula One didn't just leak a comeback. It revealed how the sport really works. Not fixed, not rigid, but constantly evolving. Always adjusting. Always finding a way forward. And if Saudi Arabia returns, then this season won't just be remembered for who won the championship. It will be remembered for something much bigger. The moment Formula One proved that even the ending is something it can rewrite.